What's up, everybody? I'm Metal Nick.
I'm Jeff Grindstoffer.
And welcome to episode number 66 of Vinyl Bang. Today we have a very special guest. You may know this gentleman from such bands as Condemn the Infected, Nomos, Putrefaction, and Covenance. Please welcome to the show our very good friend, Mr. Chris Keller. Chris.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
It's about time we got you on the show. I know you've got a great collection. We've been talking about this for almost a year now, and
right.
I guess we finally got our three schedules lined up correctly that we can do this episode together. So we're happy to have you on finally, bud.
Yeah,
happy to be here.
Chris and I were talking about this in Mechanicsburg last year.
That's right.
Before we even had JR on the show, and he was episode 25?
Something like that, yeah. So.
Hey, I mean, it makes me happy to see that you guys have been continuing weekly and not taking any breaks. I mean, that's awesome consistency. I suck at that kind of thing, so I admire it.
It gets scary at some points.
I've tried to take breaks. I've tried to put in vacation time, and he won't let me. So we got.
Hey, man, keep it going. You know.
Sometimes we do a couple episodes a week just so we have stuff in the bag. But there have been last month we kind of ran out of episodes, and we were scratching there for a while. Not every person wants to be a guest on our show. So,
hey, I mean, honestly, it's great when you can get ahead. Like that was a thing that my guitar teacher always told me, because he would always, do the Instagram and TikTok thing. It's like, it's great when you can get ahead and have enough content to last you a little while, and you're kind of not trying to catch up, but it's not going to work like that all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it pays the bills. So we got.
Hey, there you go.
Well, we asked Chris to join us today and talk about some of his favorite records. So let's get started. Chris, what did you bring to the show with us today?
So the first one I thought I would bring up is some album, right? Severed Savior. So let me see if I can get that a little closer. Oh my God, light is terrible. There we go. That's a bit better.
That's awesome.
This is Serval Insurrection from Severed Savior. This was actually by the Artisan Era, the label from what's that guy's band? Can't think of it off the top of my head. Anyways, this was a first pressing that they did probably only even a few years ago. But I've been waiting for this because this came out probably early 2000s, 2003 or so. The guitar player, the main songwriter, actually used to be in that band Sleep Terror for a hot minute. He was kind of like the second guitar player for a while, which is one of the ways that I found out about Severed Savior. Super techy, awesome, heavy death metal, just kind of unforgiving, unrelentless. But man, I was so happy to get this. This was one of those albums that I never thought was going to get pressed on vinyl, because it was more still even underground at the time for what it was. A band from Cali. They didn't really tour a whole lot. I don't even know if back then, when they were still very active, if they even did much beyond the West Coast, or maybe Texas sort of area, not too far. But they recently, I think, got back together in the last year or so, and are finally starting to kind of do some gigs and festivals here and there, which is awesome to see, because this band is awesome. They're fire, dude. I mean, this album for us, especially for the old Condemn the Infected days when we were really working on a lot of material, this was one of the biggest inspirations for us personally. So we pretty much wore the brakes off this album nonstop, every day, all the time. I actually think it was Jeremy, the singer from CTI, that showed me this album for the first time, and I was just floored with the guitar playing, because, I mean, as a musician, of course, you're kind of geared towards instruments that you love to play or can play, right? But I mean, this one, before I was even really a competent guitarist, I think this was inspiring me to just shred as much as I possibly could any day of the week. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. That is why I enjoy bands that have a tambourine, because I tear the hell out of a tambourine.
Exactly, man. I mean, and for I think for me, as I've collected, for only about 7-8 years now, not that long, honestly. But there's some things you kind of expect to just never see being pressed, or at least like you don't see that there's any kind of known interest out there for it to be pressed, more or less. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that one was like quite an awesome surprise when the Artisan Era, that label started out. It's killing me that I can't think of the band's name that the guitarist is from, but it was really stoked because the band that he's in is a very techie band itself. And he started just producing all these. Spawn of Possession was another band he started, producing records for from past albums that hadn't yet been released on vinyl. So was really stoked. The pressings look awesome, lots of color, all that kind of thing, but it sounds great as well.
Awesome.
We need to get.
Whenever an album gets pressed on vinyl that you're not expecting, it's awesome. Especially I mean, Nick and I have both been there many times. So that's really cool.
I'm still waiting for that second Aeon album to be pressed on vinyl finally.
Dude, I know. I honestly don't know what the holdup with that is. I mean, obviously, like, as I'm sure you guys know, having collected for as long and knowing how a lot of the music business works with this kind of thing, I'm sure it's tied up in some type of, owner rights dispute where someone has it and doesn't want to do anything with it or just doesn't care, or, there's a, money dispute over who has to get paid for what percentage,
Sometimes it just could be there's no interest in putting it out on vinyl. We put it out on CD. We didn't make many sales off of it, so we don't anticipate that many sales off vinyl. So
True.
I understand that. You don't want to pour money into something you're not going to make any money back on. But believe me, there's a lot of albums that people like me out there, and like I'm saying, because you've been waiting for that to be pressed on vinyl, and then it finally got pressed. Like it's happened to me with me a couple times in the last few years with certain bands, and I'm really expecting something like that to drop with Aeon it sometime in the next couple of years. So good stuff. Good stuff. All right. What else we got?
So let's see. Start off. Let's do. So I know we've talked about this one a lot, Nick. Original OG 95 copy of Swan Song. Severely underappreciated album from Carcass. I don't care what anyone thinks, whatever. I love all eras of Carcass. Don't we all? I mean, who cares? This album's awesome. I mean, for what it is, especially because, I mean, in that mid 90s period, I think everybody had a little bit of that Metallica in them and figuring out what to do against all the newer 90s bands and the grunge scene and all that, and the 80s scene kind of dying, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, when I first heard this album, I instantly loved it. I didn't really care that it was very different from previous albums. It's not so much night and day. Obviously, you can hear a good bit of the element of some of their older music within this album. But, I mean, you can't really deny that songs like Black Star aren't just some of the catchiest guitar hooks and, really catchy blues riffs, kind of old school, has some of that almost like a Thin Lizzy element to it, if a grime band were to try to go that route. But for me, I was lucky to find a copy of this. I think it was through Discogs years ago. And somebody just, it wasn't very sought after, I think, at the time. I think in more the last few years or so, it's become kind of a little bit more sought after. So I lucked out, didn't have to, pay an arm for a leg for it. But, this album to me is awesome. Super stoked to have just an original copy for me. I mean, when I started collecting, I was told by a bunch of people, try to get as many original copies of albums as you can. And I found out that was just extremely difficult to do at the time that I started collecting. So as I do have, several original pressings, it's not something I try to go out of my way to always do. So I was very, very lucky and happy to find this because this album's awesome and just completely underappreciated by a lot of people. But I'm glad to see it's kind of like, for me, it reminds me of like the Halloween 3 of the grind scene. Like when it came out, everybody hated it. And now it seems to be, getting some kind of cult love following, you know what I mean? So just really, really happy that I was able to find this for a good price. And it was a mint condition copy. I don't even know if the guy had opened it yet, but yeah, this album, Swan Song, just fantastic from front to back. I can listen to it at any time, and it's just perfect.
The Halloween 3 analogy was a good one. Very well put. As far as collecting OG pressings, it's hard to do, and it's fucking expensive.
Dude. Yes.
So there's that.
that was. I mean, that I think is just the most impractical issue. Is I want to collect, but I can't afford to just buy one a year or so because I want that one record.
I think so. For me personally, in the very beginning, that I was absolutely that. I was like, I have to have the OG pressing. Then it got to the point where it was like, it's got to be a special looking vinyl for me to want the OG pressing. Like there's nothing. It's not going to like make me less of a person to have like the 5th pressing of this record, and I had to like come to terms with that a couple of years ago. But there are quite a few OG pressings in my collection that I not in my collection yet that I still want. And like you said, like Jeff was saying, it's a very pricey thing to go through. Sometimes it's even more difficult just to find someone who wants to let go of an OG pressing of anything. So. It's
especially these days. I think people are realizing a lot more of the value to things, especially as every generation gets older, you obviously want to find the things that you grew up loving. So I mean that's part of the issue.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The thing about like OGs, just real quick, the thing about OGs, like unless you get lucky like Jason Kaiser and you go to your neighbor's house and ask for change for a 5 and they end up giving you like crates of, here, just take these original Metallicas.
Oh my God, I know.
Jackass.
Anyway, the opportunities I'm sure I've missed throughout my years at yard sales when I was younger.
Right.
No, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Anyway.
So let's switch things up a little bit. So wanted to talk about, this is one of the records I got from my very first purchase of buying records ever. This is a Tony McAlpine record, just a guitar instrumental shredder album from the 80s, basically. Actually, this I think is early 90s. Original pressing too, but the record store I bought it from in New Jersey, I don't know, you guys probably been there because it was huge. Vintage Vinyl that closed down in, I think, 2021, unfortunately. One of the best record stores I've ever been to that was just kind of more of a mom and pop operation. Absolutely huge selection. But I got, I think, about 4 records. A couple of them I have with me to kind of talk about because they're just special to me as far as albums that I was able to grab, and the fact that they were all from the first time that I was able to buy records in general after I started gaining interest in them. But this guy in general, he might not be well known to a lot of people that aren't guitarists necessarily. He's played with a lot of different musicians and bands, Yngwie's and Steve Vai and all that kind of thing. I mean, I think he used to play as his keyboardist for a while because he's also a phenomenal keyboardist and pianist. But this album in general is one of few for me as far as guitar albums that I could listen from front to back without skipping anything. Every song's super unique. I just think he's a brilliant songwriter. It has this kind of neoclassical thing that you get from Yngwie, but with his own sort of twist to it, where you also have kind of like a big 80s kind of synthy vibe as well, because he has a lot of orchestration and synth playing going on in pretty much every song, or parts designed specifically around the piano in general. But Tony McAlpine, man, this album is awesome. I mean, look at that hair, bro. You can't deny that is a look that I would wear every Sunday. So this album in general, if you haven't heard it, check it out. I keep ruining the shots with my stupid camera and lights, so hopefully that doesn't keep happening. But
hey, that's part of the show. All right, just suck it up and deal with it, because we've been doing this. We've been dealing with the last.
I'll fire my production manager.
No, that's something Nick and I both deal with all the time. The glare.
I hate it, man. I'm trying to look professional, But no, seriously, I mean, like, again, this is one of those things. I think one of the reasons, because when we went to this record store, my girlfriend Nata was the one who was like, we should go. We had played a No Mas gig. think this would have been about fall of 2017, and we were coming back from New York City. She's like, "Yo, I found this awesome, well, it looks awesome record store on the way back. It's not really far off of 95, maybe 10 minutes, if that, off the turnpike. You know what I mean? Not very far down. And I wasn't going in there planning to buy any records, but the ones that I found, I was like, well, I can't now because I found them, so I have to have them. And I mean, actually looking through them, I think one of the biggest things about really getting into collecting records was the fact that I obsessed over artwork as a kid, whether it was movies or albums, anything like that. There's just so much amazing artwork out there for albums. Not that this one's particularly stunning anyway. I still love it, but just as an example, I mean, horror movies and all that kind of thing, like that always catches your eye when you're walking through the movie aisles and stuff. It would be the same thing as you're walking through the record store. You know what I mean? And I think I love the idea of getting that giant picture of the album, getting everything in print, being able to open it up, look at it. And then, as I learn more about it, the fact of quality and the pressings on vinyl, you know what I mean? What we hear as far as CDs and MP3 is a compressed, squashed version of the real thing, right? So, in essence, this is the best way to hear the album of any album, So that was pretty much all I ever needed, and from that point on, I was sold. But that one record store, I'm so sad that it's gone, man. Vintage vinyl was probably the only reason I ever started collecting in general, other than the fact that my girlfriend was always just like, "Oh, you should start collecting. I mean, they're awesome. I mean, look at all this stuff I got," and show me the records that she would have of bands that I like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wish that store was still open, man. It was so massive. Like, I mean, they had, even just their rock or metal selection was probably a good, 2,000 records, maybe.
Right. Tell you what, if you ever go on tour and you're playing in St. Louis, there's a Vintage Vinyl in St. Louis. I don't know if it's affiliated with the one out there, but I know that there is a Vintage Vinyl, and it's like it's in the Loop. It's like there's a lot of businesses down there. Awesome record store. Vintage Vinyl in St. Louis. If you ever come to town, we'll go check it out.
Yeah, dude, I'd love to. I'm always looking for another, cool spot and just seeing as many as you can find. You never know what you're going to discover.
Right. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep it going. So this is a really cool pressing. This is from that, I'm not even sure how you're really supposed to pronounce the NESI, that Chinese label that does a lot of pressings for bands. So I'm not exactly sure how legit this is at this point, because I've heard that they've done a lot of pressings without bands' permission. So hopefully there's nothing with that going on with this Dark Funeral album. But Secrets of the Black Arts, right? The reason why I bought this is because I didn't own this album and I saw it go up and I wanted it and I got it. And, honestly, it's cool and all that it has, kind of the Chinese writing and all of that on there. What I really love about their pressings is they do, kind of a cool foil element to a lot of the slip covers. So it's probably a little bit hard to tell through the camera lens, but it has this kind of shiny coating to it a little bit, almost like a sparkling element. Really nice quality, almost feels kind of like leather in a way. But their pressings are always awesome. With this one, they usually are known for doing kind of these big splatter deals. So this one was just really nice to have. I always loved this record. This was one of the first black metal albums I really got into back in the early 2000s. But this one in general, another one of those ones I had really looked for a long time. And actually, even to put it with that was another band that I actually had to wait quite a long time to actually see live for the first time. So, with that being, it kind of made me appreciate it that much more when I was finally able to listen to it on vinyl and finally get it playing that way. That pressing, I mean, I think that was one of the first ones I ever got from that company. I have a few others, even, a couple others that I'm probably going to discuss a little bit. But they do pretty high quality work, which I was really surprised to see. And I think I found out about them mostly just through, the Instagram vinyl community. A lot of guys that are posting about it. L Triple Martin, our buddy Nick. I know you know him. He would always have his stories loaded with whatever was being released from every reputable label that anyone was interested in. So, I got to shout out to him, because without him, I probably wouldn't have discovered a lot of stuff before it was too late.
Absolutely. That's one guy I would love to have on our show. I know he's getting rid of a lot of his vinyl right now. He's starting a family, but he is absolutely responsible for, I think, a majority of the record community on Instagram knowing what's about to come out, what's going up for pre-order. He was very consistent with that in his stories, and I appreciate the fuck out of that guy for that. He's also
Yeah, dude. I mean, he's super awesome guy. I mean, yeah, I think I can't even remember at the top when he was, really going at that hard every day at the height of his popularity with doing that whole thing. I mean, I can't even imagine how many collectors he was helping out, because with the ones that were actually seeing it from his stories, that at least like 7 out of 10 of those people are sending it to somebody else to help them out.
Yeah,
and then it just kind of like that domino effect.
So I'm I own Deliverance by Opeth on vinyl, by the way. So shout out to
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, I know he's, like you said, he's getting a lot of his collection away and stuff, but I'm sure he still has quite a bit, or, more than enough to come on and talk about it. But that would definitely be an awesome dude to see on the show for sure.
Yeah. And then as far as Nessie, Jeff, you got some info about Nessie?
Oh, dude, huge Nessie enthusiast here, man. They're
Okay.
fucking
Nice.
I think the first one I got from them, I believe, was Cattle Decapitations, the Harvest Floor. Put it on, and it was just blown away by how good the sound is. I mean, I own 3 or 4 Cattle albums, Igor, Spirituality and Distortion.
Yeah.
They're incredible. I don't know what they do to improve the sound, but their vinyl is just, my God, it sounds good. And Nick is, the same way. I know he owns several. And
yeah, I've noticed the same thing you noticed, Chris, about the quality of the cover art is completely different.
Yes.
Looks better. So he absolutely improved the original pressings of these vinyls to make them sound better. And I love that guy. We had someone on our show recently. He said he doesn't think he hasn't put anything new out in a couple of years, I believe. So
it's been a little while. I want to say there was some stuff earlier around last year, because I've been subscribing to his email list for at least a few years, but there would always be like, you would check their store and there would always be some stuff there. But I remember when they first started dropping a lot of the Cannibal Corpse reissues through Nessie, and everybody was stuck because they looked amazing. I mean, those pressings were absolutely beautiful. And then they ran out of a bunch, and then I think he did either it was a second or third run, and they did multiple colors on each run. But I would see those on the store, which actually one of the records that I talked about was a Cannibal record that I got from them. So I'm sad to hear about that. I mean, I hope that's not the case. I hope he can continue. I hope it's something that he's actually able to sustain a living off of, because, man, I mean, I think from, the amount of records like the two of you, I'm sure, know from various labels, their qualities and the way that they print and press vinyl is just very, very different. You know what I mean? I don't know enough about materials and such to really say for certain to sound educated and smart like that, but their pressings are absolutely gorgeous. They sound awesome. I hope whatever happens, he's able to do more.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Shout out Nessie.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe it's not Loch Nessie. That was a terrible joke, by the way. Edit that one out. All right.
$20, I'll edit that one out.
So here's one just for fun, right? Now, Nick knows this about me. I am a huge soundtrack guy, right? But also on top of that, huge video game guy, right? This is OG games, Streets of Rage. Now, I know you two have to be familiar with that because anyone born in our era had to go to the arcade at some point, right?
True.
So this is the full soundtrack. Data discs, I'm not even sure if they're really around anymore. They had the same kind of OBI strips that companies like Mondo would use, and Nessie that we were just talking about, similar things. So they're always recognizable when you would see them. I don't see much of them anymore, and I haven't really looked that closely. But I have several just kind of old video game soundtracks that I was able to snag from them. And they do great work. You know what I mean? Like this, a lot of this stuff was, from Japan originally. So it took quite a while to get either cooperations or licensing to end so you can release a lot of this stuff via the US and such. But dude, I mean, the music in this game, I think for me, especially just video games in general, from the 80s and early 90s, inspired a lot of metalheads. You know what I mean? Because most of this stuff had like heavy rhythms or the melodies that you were hearing your Metallicas and all sorts of other bands doing at the time. You know what I mean? So actually, now that I'm talking about this, I really feel like I got to see what's up with data discs and see if they're still around and kicking. Because yeah, they've released quite a few really awesome pressings of video games. They usually didn't go crazy with colors or anything, which doesn't really matter a whole lot in the end if you just want the album, which I did. And I mean, a lot of them will have around just 16 tracks or so, and for video game music, it's not like they're these long extended tracks. So for me, I think through a lot of inspiration, it's fun to hear some of these older albums and kind of rekindle where I got a lot of musical inspiration from in general. You know what I mean? Just stuff that you kind of in your subconscious forget about through time. But it's, anytime I kick this on, it's just like you're playing the game again, or you feel like you're in the game. You know what I mean? I don't know if you guys have gone through and never collected anything like that yourselves, but for me, I just love it. You know what I mean? I love the old soundtracks of games, man. They're nostalgic, and so much of it is so well written and so catchy.
That's the one thing I don't.
If I have any video game soundtracks, and I don't think
Yeah.
I should.
The only one that I've ever really looked for was Mega Man, and I've seen that somebody put like all 3 Mega Mans on vinyl.
Yeah.
It's not cheap at all.
Yeah. So there's a company, I think they're out of England. I think it's Laced Audio. Pretty sure they're the ones that have done like there's actually I think like a few like really large Mega Man sets because I mean there's I don't know 12 of them or however many at this point. But I'm sure there's a pressing out there at least if not from the last couple years from maybe just a few years prior. Yeah. But I mean, I kind of would go out of my way. I mean, there's certain games that, I'm like, okay, I could live without that soundtrack, of course, but there's some that I would just play the brakes off of. So it's nice for me to either listen to that music or just even go to play. Either way, I'm happy to hear it because most of that stuff you would hear, especially on like the old NES or Super NES games, right? They would play the same loop of song. And especially if you weren't like just coasting through levels all day long, you would hear that same song for like an hour.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So for me, it's very hard to resist like wanting to hear those songs again. It's like an addiction. You know what I mean? Like a lost addiction that you just can't get rid of. Because those songs are like they're like ticks. They latch onto you, and you just can't. I don't even know. It's like a friendly tick. You don't even want to get rid of it. Just stay here and let me listen to you for a while. You know what I mean?
Man, you are good with analogies. I want some fucking video game soundtracks now. I'm gonna start looking.
Dude, I'm saying, man, like some of them, like if you just want to have like, all right, it's not one of those things I do if like I've had a bad day, but I'm just like, I need something to perk up my spirits. Let me just, even if it's not to spin the whole record, like let me listen to a few songs real quick. Let me get this done.
One that I've always wanted Goldeneye.
Oh, dude. So funny enough that you've mentioned that. My girlfriend actually got a copy of it. So it's not, they haven't, I think, to my knowledge, released just the old like N64 soundtrack. They've released like an orchestration version of it. So played with, wind and brass instruments, all that kind of thing. Which is great, but I don't think to this point they have ever released just an N64 version completely of that soundtrack. So, because that one, as far as I know, for a lot of people, that's like a legendary soundtrack. Like people would love to have it, and every time they reissue it on vinyl, it would sell out, within minutes, if not hours.
Like
So
Mondo
that
did
one
that
I completely agree with. That would be absolutely awesome to have because that soundtrack just slaps the whole way through.
Best 64 game ever. But now that you've just told me that it's orchestrated and it's not actually 64, my enthusiasm for video game soundtracks is fucking shot. Gone.
Yeah, I mean, so there's also, I mean, there's quite a few like bootleg versions of a lot of video game music out there. 'Cause, I mean, a lot of it, has either been lost through time or, a lot of this stuff is still just sitting on tape somewhere.
Right.
So I think a lot of it's not necessarily accessible, and then you have to find somebody who wants to get it. And the good thing with a lot of the old soundtracks like that, they would actually get together with the original songwriter of the music and work through the reproduction of pressing it on vinyl, and if it was remastered or touched up in any way, they would be involved in the whole thing.
Right. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sick. Let's keep it going. Where is it? All right. Oh shit, that didn't sound good. All right, so I'm going to move on, not to stick with soundtracks for a minute, but this is a really awesome movie if you guys have never seen it. Also a very, very, very good soundtrack. This is Beyond the Black Rainbow. So this is a indie Canadian film, came out in, I don't know, early 2000s or early 2010s or so. Heavy synthy soundtrack, but in a really cool kind of similar to a John Carpenter kind of way, more on the spookier kind of eerie side. Absolutely awesome movie though. The score for it, I was I was creeped out, I guess you would say, but also really entranced by it. Is the movie is very intense itself, so the soundtrack kind of applies that times 10. But even just listening to it on its own, that is, it's such a catchy, really dark, just kind of slow brooding soundtrack. The guy who wrote this plays in, I think, it's like a psychedelic kind of rock band. I think they're called Black Mountain in Canada. Another kind of chill band, but I mean, I'm a huge Pink Floyd guy, so anything psychedelic usually entrances me or intrigues me to a point that I want to check it out. So this album in general, really, really, really cool stuff. I hadn't heard a lot of the that kind of vibe with synthesizers, mostly since kind of like Eyes Wide Shut, when they're having that big party scene, that kind of vibe. You know what I mean? But way more, I would say, listenable in a way. Because I mean, with Eyes Wide Shut and that scene, if you guys know what I'm talking about, that's more of like just a repetitive kind of droning thing. You have like these voices going over it the whole time, that sort of thing. And I love that for what it is. And this moves much, much faster. So it's almost like, as you're listening to it, you're not sure when one song is going to end and the next one starts. It's very hard to kind of tell between sometimes. But really, really, really awesome album. This is a Death Waltz printing, which I'm not even sure, or pressing, that is, not printing. I'm not even sure if they're really doing much these days. I think they might have combined with Mondo, which now Disney bought. So who knows who owns what or presses what these days. But it sounds really, really awesome on vinyl in general. I really, really love this record. It's just kind of spooky by itself. If you haven't seen it, it's an awesome movie. It's basically this girl that's on the album cover is pretty much a kind of telekinetic kind of Carrie thing going on, and she's at this kind of new age healing center sort of deal that takes place in the 80s, and they're using this kind of new treatment, and then you kind of see that the treatment is it's definitely new but way out there, right? Just in all sorts of kind of creepy and disturbing ways. But that record in itself is amazing. I love that. Just kind of heavy. If you're, sort of on a long drive on the highway, as many of us have been, and Jeff, I know you probably logged more miles than either Nick or I ever have.
Oh, stop. Oh, you.
I'm just saying.
I do.
Um,
No, that movie, that Beyond the Black Rainbow, The Lion's Daughter out of St. Louis, they released a demo back in 2015, and I'm almost 100% positive. I'm sitting here looking for it, trying to find the artwork, but I'm almost positive that they used an illustration from that movie as the artwork for their digital online demo or whatever. But I'm sitting here trying to
That's
find
awesome.
it because I remember that movie Beyond the Black Rainbow. That's ringing a bell somewhere. And The
Yeah,
Lion's
man.
Daughter, who are very, like, their last few albums were very, very heavy on the synth, and that
that's
makes
awesome.
sense. That makes sense now that they
Yeah.
would be, incorporate the two or whatever. I mean, Rick Giordano, the vocalist and the guy who pretty much is the Lion's Daughter, he's very into horror movies. This pizzeria that he has is all horror themed or whatever. But that synthesizer thing really like struck a nerve. I'm like, the Lion's Daughter, shit, I need to, and I'm almost positive that movie was what they used the artwork for their demo.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, I love that because a lot of people do know about that movie. Me and the guitarist from No Mas John, we had heard about it because people at the time when it came out were saying it was like the weirdest movie of all time. And we were like, oh well, weird's right up our alley. Let's check it out.
Right.
And I mean, of course, it didn't help that we smoked a lot before we started watching the movie, but it was so intense for us at one point because we were just so into it that we had to just like pause it and take a 10-minute break. Like go outside for a few minutes.
Yeah, good. I'm glad we're done talking about drugs because we don't condone marijuana on Vinyl Bang.
Oh, gotcha.
Cut that out.
Shout out to Black Mountain. Our friend Jason Netherton told me about this band many years ago. Around the same time he told me about the band Ghost, they put out an album called Wilderness Heart. It's got like a shark coming through like a building.
Okay.
Very unique band. So I can understand why that soundtrack might be very. You said synth heavy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I've talked about this soundtrack on the show a couple times for a movie called It Follows that had that like 70s, 80s like vibe to it with like that synth heavy and just it's a great soundtrack. I love it. And as soon as you started talking about that, that's immediately what I thought of.
Yeah, actually, now that you brought that up, that's probably one of the movies that I would compare that to a good bit as well. Those kind of long, just held notes, steady, kind of just brooding, sort of mood driving, inducing kind of thing.
Side note, again, to bring up the Lion's Daughter, if you're really into the synth stuff and if you like your death metal with synth, check them out.
Yeah, definitely. With Lion's Den, you said?
The Lion's Daughter.
Lion's Daughter. Sorry.
Yes,
Yeah,
the Lion's
awesome.
Daughter.
Yeah, I'll do that. Awesome. Yeah, I would love to. I'd love to check out some good psychedelic bands, man. Because I mean, honestly, I don't get that many thrown my way, or at least that I find that I enjoy all that much. So it'd be nice to discover some new ones.
And there you go. That's what we do here at Vinyl Bag.
Well, that's why I'm here. I'm here for recommendations, right? All right, let's see here. Let's move on. All right. So, oops. Actually, that was not the right one. Another album that I had to bring up, Stormlight's Bane. Right, for my money, this is the best mixture of black metal and death metal that you can find. Best, I mean, for me, this is my favorite extreme metal album. Period. As soon as I heard this album for the first time, I don't think I stopped listening to it for, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months. Another album that I waited an extremely long time to get a pressing of, because since the guitar player committed suicide in what I think '06, there's just, probably not really a whole lot of people heading everything for the rights of music and distribution, all that kind of thing. So random labels have kind of popped up and produced a few repressings here and there. This one I was really, really lucky to find a good deal on from Discogs at one point. Been looking for it for, I don't know, probably 5 years before I was able to get it. This, for my money, is just so valuable to have. I mean, I can't underappreciate owning this album as much as I'm talking about it right now. But I'm sure you guys know this record a lot. This is just a picture disc version of it, so nothing special. I don't think they really have any kind of colorful or design pressings of this stuff by any means, which is just fine by me. Because honestly, a lot of the time, the black pressings will usually sound much better. But this is from the End Records, I think in combination with Nuclear Blast. But they did a lot of kind of early 2000 albums repressed randomly. I don't even think they're around much anymore. Honestly, I don't hear about them or see anything from them anymore. But just another album I was super stoked to get, man. I mean, I love this album. I was supposed to see them in New York City on my 21st birthday, and they denied them entry into the country for the visa issues or whatever. And then I guess he just did a few more shows out in Europe and decided it was time to end his life, unfortunately. But to his tragic end, you know what I mean? Just, I love this band so much. I wish that dude was still around just so I had a chance to, see him play live, or just hopefully meet him one day and actually talk to him about music. It'd be awesome to get inside his head. But yeah, one of my all-time favorite bands, Dissection, one of the best albums they've ever made. I mean, this one, a lot of times, you'll hear the Somber Lane get brought up, of course, but these records are invaluable to me because they're so good, and I waited a really long time to get it, dude. One of my favorites. They're hopefully, from what I've been hearing, they're hopefully going to do some reissues for them in the not too distant future, but still kind of waiting to see. Honestly, they're pretty. I mean, even to get like a second or third or fourth reissue from them is $400 or $500 most of the time nowadays. So it's really tough to get anything from them if you don't have it already.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, I'm going to say this. I'm not happy the guy died, obviously, but luckily he died before like the internet was the way it is now. Because once you die now, everything explodes in a much bigger way. Thankfully, he died in the early 2000s, so anybody collecting records just knew he was dead already.
Yeah. All right.
Right on.
All right, man. Let's keep it going. So, let's see. All right. Now, I'm sure I haven't checked myself because there's definitely episodes that I've missed of this show so far, but OG pressing of Harmony Corruption. This was a birthday present. Another one I never really expected to ever get. Luckily, I think it was probably for hopefully not a horrible price, but another album I was super thrilled to get. I've never gotten a reissue copy of this, so I've never compared it with anything, but with some of these older records, it's really hard to hear some of the original audio. You know what I mean? There's a lot of different like remastered versions of stuff, and a lot of stuff on like Spotify gets rotated or changed quite a bit. So you'll hear different versions of the same thing. But there's something about going back, if you're lucky enough to get some of the original pressings of these old death metal and grindcore records, to be able to hear them the way that they originally were recorded is pretty awesome, because they just sound so different. I mean, a lot of your masters sound great. I don't knock on all of them. I don't hate the idea. But it's really cool to be able to go back to the original sound, even if it's terrible, even if it was not mixed properly. It's nice because every album, as you guys would agree, I'm sure has its own character, especially for the sound or the production value, right? Or the way that they use reverb or something. You know what I mean? So for me, this is always, just a really great listen. But very, very thrilled that I was able to get this as a gift. It was another one from my girlfriend Nata. So thank you very much. Really happy to have it. Got the hype sticker on it and everything. As far as I know, this is a 1990 pressing. I think this was split between UK and Germany as far as where it was pressed. And then I think in 91, they started doing a larger pressing out of the UK and I think US and all that kind of thing. But as far as I know, I've been told recently that I might be wrong. But as far as I know, this is an OG pressing.
You don't need that kind of negativity in your life. It's an OG
Right?
pressing, and you just keep believing that.
I'm just saying, I didn't need to hear that when it was told to me, so I just tried to ignore it. But there's that little voice that just makes me say, you might be wrong.
You have brought something else to light. Getting records for birthday presents. I need to start telling people that give me birthday presents that I collect records, and maybe they'll start buying me records for birthday presents.
Dude, absolutely, do it. I mean, it was awesome one year. My brother and my sister got me a Vader record for Christmas. I wasn't even expecting. I was like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Wow.
What are the odds that I will get a record? But it helps obviously like posting about it, and but yeah, especially for you, Jeff, being a part of Vinyl Bang, I would hope that more people would know that that's what you're really wanting to get.
I'm going to tell Nick after we're done recording. I'm going to say, Nick, for my birthday, I would like a record, and he's going to say, "Shut up, Jeff."
Hey, this dude has gotten records for his birthday from me in the past. He knows this.
Hey, I mean, you guys keep this between you. I'm not going to get into the fight.
Well, last episode of Vinyl Bang ever.
It's the beginning of the end. I did it all.
Thanks, Chris.
I'm sorry. All right. So I couldn't do an episode. I know I'm probably going to have a lot of records from the early 2000s, but that's probably because that's where I generally did most of my listening early on when I was getting into metal. But I'm probably going to say this phrase again and again and again, but I waited a long freaking time to get a copy of this record, Litany by Vader. Not one of their better mixed albums. If you guys are familiar with it, you might agree. The kick drums have the craziest amount of bass and terrible frequency as you could get. So they about destroy your speakers every time you leave this album cranked, or God forbid you had it playing on your shuffle. But the songwriting and the songs in general on this album are some of my absolute favorite. This was my favorite Vader album for quite a long time, up until I was able to hear some of the earlier ones, because this was, I believe, one of the first records from them that I ever listened to. But it's still in my top 3 for them. Amazing album. It's just unrelenting. I believe this was one of the second to last album that the original drummer Doc, that ended up passing away in the early 2000s, was on. One of my favorite drummers, just super relentless, hit really hard, always had really intricate fills and beats. Really sad to hear that he passed away years ago. I would hear stories about him a lot from Bruce from Covenants and Next Step Up. Because Bruce, I think it was while he was playing live for Dying Fetus, they had done at least one tour or two, probably in Europe, with Vader, and got to know the guys, which piqued my interest, that much more, hearing that they were really awesome dudes. But every single song on this album slaps. It's just unrelenting. I love the songwriting on it. Vader's just one of those bands for me. They're one of my favorites. The death metal slayer. Basically, they don't really change. They don't really do anything different from what they started doing. And even as they evolved, they've still never really changed their core sound, which I don't even know how you do that and still can write music that's interesting, that people want to listen to. You know what I mean? As a fan of the band, I'm always kind of surprised, like, holy shit, this is like, every time they release a new record, I'm always like, wow, this is amazing. Like, the songwriting still is really good. And granted that they've they've had so many members in that band. They still find ways to just keep writing amazing music. I mean, I don't know if you were there, Nick, but there was 1 year that Summer Slaughter played in Richmond and didn't come up to Maryland at all when Vader, I think it was Cryptopsy, Black Dahlia.
I saw that in New Jersey.
But half of Vader was
Decapitated.
So half of Vader when they were on that tour was in Decapitated. You had
I remember that.
I think Vogue and the bassist.
Yeah. Yep. Martin and Vitek, or Martin and Vogue were the only ones. I remember that really well.
I
saw that.
Yeah.
You're right. That was the second one. It did not come anywhere near us. It came to New Jersey, and so I drove up for that one, and it was like mixed with another fest, so they made it some other thing. But shout out to Bruce.
Yeah. They were doing that a lot then.
Shout out and rest in peace to Bruce Craig from Covenants.
Yeah, man. Rest in peace, Bruce.
Since we're talking about Vader, I can't help but say that they were a huge influence on Decapitated, which was one of my favorite death metal bands in the early 2000s. So, great band, an amazing live band. Like you said, like they're like the Slayer of death metal. They never changed their sound. They managed to keep putting out great records, and just they've always had that powerful drumming. That's what I've always appreciated about them. The drumming never sucked on any of their albums.
And I feel like they're one of those bands that's helped a lot of careers for other musicians. You know, several of their band, like I think their current drummer now, for the current drummer for Decapitated, that is, was in Vader for a good while and did, you know, the past few records for them. One of their drummers joined Dimmu Borgir. I mean, several of their musicians have gone on to do other big things, which is really cool. Also, the fact I forgot to mention, that album's about to turn 25. So they're going to do, I think, a bunch of songs off that album. Not that they're coming here, unfortunately, but as far as I know, I think they're going to do a bunch of songs from that record over the summer.
Killer.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all right. So, not that there's a whole lot that I wanted to say about this album, but I thought this would be really funny to bring up. This is kind of a rarity, right? Persistence of Time by Anthrax. Obviously a great album, but on the spine, let me see if I can angle that properly so you guys can read that, hopefully.
Persistence.
Yeah, persistence is spelled with an A.
Yeah, it's not spelled right there.
Yeah, so
nice error there. Cool.
I believe I think I bought this from Newberry Comics, right? Which I've gotten a lot of great albums to them. So this is, you know, just one of those things. I was going to rebuy it when I got it because I was like, you know, what the fuck is this shit? I thought I was getting Persistence of Time, not Persistence of Time. You know, like that's not even how you say it. So I was pretty bothered by it, but I decided to let it go. You know, I was like, I'm not going to return it. It's just probably going to be a hassle and they'll take forever. So, you know, now I'm just kind of like happy with it. It's like a happy, funny thing. Like, yeah, I got Persistence of Time. And I think they got it right basically everywhere else but the spine. And I don't think the whoever distributed it or printed it didn't ever, I think, care to give anybody any money back or say, like, send it back and we'll, you know, send you a new spine. I think they just had what they had and you got what you got. Because shortly after they released this particular reissue, there was another one within a few months. And I think it had to be because of the spine issue. And I don't think it was on all of them, just some have that persistence of time. But, you know, I had to bring that up because that's just, I mean, who has that? Who has that?
I believe
probably a lot, but
I believe in Insight. It was John Bush that did that. John Bush thought he would be,
you know,
kicked him out of the band. He said, "Fuck you guys, I'm going to do Persistence."
We have a couple. The Intronaut, Valley of Smoke.
Valerie of Smoke. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. Right.
There's a Darkest Hour, Deliver Us, and on the spine it says Darkest Hour, Undoing Ruin, which is the album before. So
oh my god,
that's when somebody back at the pressing plant does not do quality control check, and that's not on the band or the label. That's on the It's on the pressing plant or whatever.
Somebody's over just pencil whipping. Yep, it's good. Yep, it's good. Yep, it's good.
Yep.
I ain't looked at shit. I gotta go on break. It's good.
It happens. It does happen. So
I mean, it's cool. I mean, I've gotten a few records that had like sound quality issues. Mainly, surprisingly, it was from the company Waxwork Records that does a lot of the soundtracks, right? And funny enough, it was for the movie Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and they had sent it. As I'm also one of the subscribers that I probably told you that, Nick.
yeah.
But they sent out a subscriber variant for that album, and it just sounded absolutely awful, just almost unlistenable. So many pops and scratches and all that kind of thing. But they were really good about it. Ended up getting some new ones out within, I think, a month or so. And now that they have their own plant, they can probably, do a lot better with quality checks. Because that was during like the COVID time period where things were really limited and kind of funny with pressings at the time. There was a lot of mistakes and stuff happening. And
Sure. I definitely remember.
So I don't really get mad about it. It happens.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Okay. So I know I've talked a lot about soundtracks so far, and not to keep doing that a ton, but I had to show you guys this. So this is an old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles soundtrack, right? But the coolest thing is this is the only one of its kind that I have like this, right? Pull this out here. Liquid filled turtle
That's great.
face.
Oh damn, that's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Holy fuck.
It's a fun little guy. I mean, luckily it's kept its place so far. You know what I mean? I'm always a little worried that it's going to leak out, especially because sometimes it gets a little hot upstairs in this house. But so far, knock on wood, it's been okay. So I'm hoping that'll stay that way.
Real quick, I'm going to share a tip with you because our good friend Alex Shaw, his wife Melanie, sent me a video one time about liquid-filled vinyls, and there should be an arrow somewhere on that vinyl that tells you the direction you need to keep it in. All liquid-filled vinyls have like a little mark that tells you.
Yeah. No, I was looking for that. I remembered that when I first got it. I believe it's right here. There's a little mark.
Yeah, so it should be. That's the side that you keep it up in, and then also they suggest don't keep them with your other records. Like keep them like on a separate shelf because for the sudden chance that it does break and leak.
Yep. Yeah, I've kept this one pretty safe. Luckily, it hasn't leaked out like at all. But that's the only one of its kind that I had. And after I got it, because it wasn't overly expensive. Like some of these liquid filled records are like really, really expensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this one didn't cost too much to get, but I was still kind of wary about owning one. And then when I got it and I read, the instructions from it, because it's it's from that company, Enjoy the Ride Records.
That was my next question, was if I was the Enjoy the Ride pressing.
Yep. Which, to be honest, I absolutely am a huge fan of that company because I've spoken with him through email a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was once because I got a copy of Beavis and Butthead Do America from him, and it came in the mail all fucked up. They had like smashed a couple of the corners of it, and I just hit him up, and he was like, "Yeah, man, if you need another sleeve, we're not doing it right now, but we're expecting to do another run of those again soon." And he sent me out another one.
Nice,
awesome. At least he made it right for you.
Yeah, I mean, he's totally cool. Like, he offered to help me in so many ways. He also was like one of the first people that instructed me. He's like, when it comes to vinyl, try not to do like the cheapest shipping option. Because a lot of times that's like usually where they'll get a little bit more damaged.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. So let's keep it moving. Remember what I didn't talk about yet. Oh, yeah. All right. King Diamond. So this was when Metal Blade started doing like a lot of their reissues in the last 5 years, as they've done many times. But I was lucky enough to snag some of the Euro editions that they do, which honestly, in my opinion, are usually like the cooler looking pressings a lot of the time for this sort of thing. Conspiracy was the first album that I ever heard by King Diamond. I discovered it on the old Roadrunner website when they'd have a little box on the web page where you could play like a music video from an artist when you looked them up. And Sleepless Nights was the only video they had for him, so that was the first song I heard, and that was the first song I became a fan of. So when they put these out, I think they released, I don't know, about the first 4 or 5 King Diamond records. All of these really cool pressings. This one's like a nice little like red purple mix, but they sound really great. You know, they aren't the remasters. These are like the classic series, I think is what they call them. So they're supposed to be the same audio as they were originally, and not anything or any version. I don't know how many versions there are remasters for their older stuff, but sounds really great. Plays really great. It's not a gatefold or anything, you know, but this was another album that I was absolutely just stoked to have. I think the guitar playing on this, and for my money, I mean, I know a lot of people, you know, always rave about Abigail. I love Abigail. I love them. I love Fatal Portrait, right? The first 3 records are awesome. But for me, I thought that this album, as far as the musicianship and songwriting, was just way more mature. In a way, you know, I mean, I know there's a loss of certain elements for some people from the older side, because I don't believe that was it Michael Denner, who was the Merciful Fate guitarist. I don't think he's on this album. But I think it just sounds the best. The quality of it, the recording, the production, the effects, the storytelling of it's really awesome. You know what I mean? So I was really stoked to get this one. I think it's just, I mean, look at that face. Unfortunately, Gene Simmons had to be, you know, Mr. Fancy Pants and sue him, so he had to change his makeup. But I mean, come on, that's beautiful right there. Who doesn't want that?
Dude, you Stella just told me this story the other day, and of all the years that I've known about Kissing King Diamond, I've never heard that until like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, wait, did he really do this?
Yeah, I'm surprised you weren't aware of that, man. Like that dude, I don't think has any shame, shame about it whatsoever. Yeah, but yeah, like I remember learning about that early on, because when I was first getting into King Diamond and, you know, like buying CDs, which I used to have a huge CD collection, so I always more or less collected some form of music, and then tapes before that. But I remember like going through the older records, and then, you know, of course, skimming through the album artwork, you know, and then seeing some of the stuff past the 80s into the early 90s. I'm like, why the hell does he wear a hat now and his makeup's all different? You know what I mean? I didn't know. So I actually just, as I did a lot back then when I didn't know anything, I just went on the internet and tried doing some research, and I found out, yeah, Gene Simmons is that kind of guy.
Jackass.
12 grand, you could be his roadie.
You know,
$12.
if I had 12,000 to throw away,
a bag
not
of
even.
strings.
You pay $12,000 to work for somebody you don't even know. You just, I feel like that honestly, I hope is recorded, just because I feel like there's going to be so many failures and blunders that happen. They're like, oh, here, Mr. Simmons, here's your bass. Whoa.
Like all out of tune and everything.
Yeah, or like falls with it and snaps the headstock, or trips over a wire and starts a fire, you know. God, I can only imagine how badly that's going to be. But, you know, I'm sure there'll be some type of like selection made, like, oh, that person's 90, they can't really do anything. All right, so we're running down. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Well, you know, Nick, I figured I would talk about this one because we always talk about this pressing, right? What is this? The 2014 white pressing of Symbolic. Again, like, so there are a couple records that I bought at this time when I found this one. Like, I guess the best way to explain it is like, there are obviously a lot of people that want this record, but it was sitting on websites forever. You know what I mean? Like, I just remember seeing it sit and sit and sit and sit. So, like, when I first saw it go up, of course, I bought one. But it was like this, and then a solo album by the Edge of Sanity main songwriter and singer and guitarist Dan Swano. Like, his solo album was released around the same time as a reissue or something like that. And I just remember seeing them on websites for the longest time. So I don't know how I lucked out to find it before a lot of other people did. But you know what I mean? I always find it's so weird to have this album if you have all the other Death albums, because all the other Death albums have, reissues speaking, they all have the fancy Relapse, stuff to them. They have the nice pressings, the gatefolds, this and that, all the bells and whistles. They look beautiful. They sound great and all that kind of thing. So, not obviously that this is not an original pressing, but super lucky and happy to have this album. For my money, it's my favorite. This one and Human, obviously they're, I think, just a couple years apart. But this album's amazing. Gene Hoglan, especially the more that I've learned about Gene as a drummer and the way that he would work, he would learn a lot of the music on guitar. Like, he would have Chuck show him the riffs, and then he would learn the riffs so that way he could write his drum parts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I have so much respect for. And it reminds me a lot of drummers that I've played with in the past that were just the super freak talented, can play and do anything. Like a Ryan Stern, Nick, I know you know him.
Absolutely.
Just
shout out to Ryan.
Yeah, shout out to Ryan, man. Like, just an awesome, super amazing talent. But finding out those kind of facts about albums is just awesome. So that made me appreciate, because the drums on this are, just some of the most unique and cool beats that you could ever hear or listen to for that kind of music. And, as a songwriter and a musician, I have a lot of appreciation for what they were willing to do, the boundaries that they were kind of pushing, you know what I mean? Because obviously the more that you learn about like Chuck Schuldiner as a person and what he wanted to pursue musically with Death, and kind of like that softer side, and trying to figure out some way to kind of intertwine them too. I think Symbolic is the best, essence of that. Because I think Sound of Perseverance, even though it's similar, it's not nearly as melodic. You know what I mean? There's a lot more heavy riffs, a lot more kind of bass driven stuff going on in there. So I think Symbolic just has a really kind of just a uniqueness in time for that band, where it stood out for a lot of different reasons, not only just in sound, but the way that they were songwriting, because a lot of it has way more structure in a way where you're trying to not necessarily come up with hooks on purpose, but you're structuring riffs so that they can become a hook. Some of the choruses in those songs are just made off of a guitar riff. You know what I mean? So I love that album. Stoked that I was able to get to it and find it before a lot of other people did, man. Because I know a lot of folks out there talk to me about how they wish they had that one.
Yeah. Relapse didn't get their claws on that one. Unfortunately, Roadrunner kept it tight to themselves. And I think I just read recently they're going to reissue it again. So hopefully
there we go.
Demos and some live songs.
Yeah, hopefully they can get something like that going. The downside with a lot of releases that I've been seeing, at least from like older records, is like, yeah, it's nice that they're putting them out on vinyl again or reissuing them or something, but it would be awesome to see them add any type of bonus content, something that wasn't released before. I don't care if it was a basement fart recording from a practice. You know what I mean? Like, just hook me up with some new stuff. That's what I would love to see. I would love to see some elements from that era, unreleased footage, unreleased audio recordings, because we got so much of that from a lot of the other Death releases that Relapse put out. You know what I mean?
Rehearsals, live stuff, demos, all that's in there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. So I'm hoping it'll be just the same, but we'll see. Oh yeah. All right. So this is more of a recent purchase. It's so recent I haven't really opened it yet. For me, Hypocrisy is one of my favorite Swedish death metal bands. I mean, obviously they're mostly on the slower side, right? But I love that sort of thing. This album, I believe this was a song as far as Eraser, which was the main single off this album, which became one of their biggest and most well-known songs even till now. I probably discovered them from one of those Brave Words Bloody Knuckle magazines where they would insert a CD of bands, usually about like 25 different tracks or so. And I'm pretty sure, I think it was Eraser was on here. You had, Bloodbath had released something recently. I think Eaton actually, had just come out. So they had Eaton as a single on there, stuff from Napalm, that kind of thing. But for years, Hypocrisy hadn't really reissued anything on vinyl. I want to say for better over probably 10 years at least. And there weren't very many pressings, if some at all, right? Some albums they just didn't press any vinyl for at all. So luckily within the last year or so, they started reissuing pretty much their entire catalog just about. So I was really stoked to get a copy of this album. I haven't opened it yet, but I'm sure it'll sound great. Nuclear Blast always does great stuff. But this album for me, it's funny listening to some of like a lot of the early 2000s Swedish metal stuff. Like, I mean, obviously they're not the same kind of band, but your Children of Bodoms and In Flames, Dark Tranquility, Soilwork, all those Swedish bands, right, on the more melodic side. It's kind of interesting to go back and listen to some of those records because it's very much like a point in time where a lot of bands were doing certain things similarly. The same thing you could say about just about most genres, right? Your metalcore and all that kind of thing. But for me, this album was just so well written. It was so well produced, and I got to see them not long after this came out. So that was really, really cool to finally be able to get to see them live. But finally getting this on record was awesome. I'm really stoked to open it, but it's been really cool to see throughout the last couple of years, of just even how long I've been collecting, that they're finally putting out just a lot of band stuff that had not been released on vinyl before. So that was one that was on the top of my list for that band specifically, because up until last year, I only had one album from them because the rest of it was just too hard or too expensive to catch. You know what I mean? I wasn't willing to drop $250, $300 on a record unless it's something I really, 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 really desire. You know what I mean? But that album is fantastic, man. It's just super cool, slow, heavy, melodic Swedish death metal. Peter Tygerton's one of the, I think, most underrated death metal singers because he has such a wide range and can get those kind of like Mitch Harris style high screams, but also get those really, really low gutturals and kind of everything in between. But that album in particular, I thought was really interesting because that was the first time I had ever heard death metal screaming actually harmonized in pitch properly, not just like two singers singing at the same time and one doing like a high and one doing a low, right? You can do that, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's like an actual harmony. So he would do by pitch, minor thirds and major thirds, all these very specific harmonies with vocals that I had never heard anybody do with screaming before. So that was very impressive and a huge inspiration for a lot of the bands that I ever did any kind of vocals and stuff like that for.
Oh. Real quick, sorry about all the technical difficulties we're dealing with here.
No,
I just kept going because I was like, I don't know if I should stop. So I'm just gonna.
You did it like
I was like, I'm going to keep this professional. Like the cameras are still rolling.
Yeah, dude. And kudos to you.
Yeah.
All right, y'all good though?
We're good. We're sorry about that. Keep rolling, buddy. Keep rolling.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I just want to make sure everything's steady.
Good.
Man, what bothered me is while I was looking through, because so many of my records, I don't know if you guys have this problem. Maybe you don't, but I'm a little tight on space, and I've organized hundreds of my records, but at the same time, so many of them are out of order and kind of like in random storage spots for records. So I started realizing there's like I'd forgotten like 3 stashes of vinyls that I had, and kind of like soft carry boxes, the ones that kind of like pop out. So, dude, it's been fun tracking these down. So honestly, it was a great thing to have to do this and start to get everything a little more organized. All right, so Nessie printing a vial from Cannibal. Man, I mean, like, again, like we were just talking about, so we don't have to talk too much about it, but just such a great pressing, such a great album. For me, like, I don't even know if this album gets talked about that often when it comes to Cannibal, especially for their older stuff, because this was the first album with Corpse Grinder. So I'm not doing any Chris Barnes era, but for me, this was a very important album at the time, especially when I was around like 14, 15, really getting into more playing. And the band that I was in at the time, we were doing a lot of kind of like more 7-string low tune stuff, which was what Cannibal was doing a lot of once Corpse Grinder joins the band. So this album, Bloodthirst, especially these two, Gallery of Suicide as well, like that era I listened to quite a bit. And that, that was after the fact that I had grown up with Cannibal Corpse. As far as when I started listening to them, I had listened to the first 3 records and first 4, 5, I can't remember how many there are with Chris Barnes off the top of my head, but I had listened to all those records and loved them. So I didn't have any type of beef or, any problem with hearing a new singer. It was different. Yeah. But I really like the evolution of style that they were starting to do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But just another really awesome pressing. You know what I mean? This one, as opposed to like the Secrets of the Black Arts, the Dark Funeral pressing I have, I can't remember off the top of my head. You guys might, but they usually offer 2 different variations of, I think, their sleeve. And I believe one has like Chinese writing, and I can't remember if the other one had Chinese writing or was Japanese or something like that. But this is not, I believe, the foil version. There's always like a foil print or something like that as far as the sleeve. So it's not quite as shiny, but it still has that really nice kind of hard texture. What I really like about these that I didn't mention earlier is how sturdy they are. You know what I mean? Like before I really knew better, I wouldn't stuff my vinyl shelves tightly, but they could have a little more room. You know what I mean? And you can find out pretty quick, obviously, which vinyl sleeves you have are going to be easier to bend or easier to crease, that kind of thing. But I've never had a problem with these. Like I feel like I could just throw it, and not that I'm ever going to, but I feel like it wouldn't bend. They're built with such high quality. So again, I mean, I know I'm going back to it, but I really hope that they're still going to be doing stuff, man, because it's just flawless. It's flawless work. But that I was going to try to buy at the time. I was trying to get as many of them as I could, because I think they had released like seven or 8 Cannibal albums all at once. I was like, dude, this is impossible. I can't do that.
Yeah,
and all of them were starting to go so fast. So I mean, I started to find whatever I could, that was available, and luckily I was able to get a copy of Vile before they ran out of them. But it sounds absolutely crushing. You know what I mean? To me, it sounded like almost like it was a remaster, but I know it isn't.
Yeah. I think that's the first time Vile's ever been on Vinyl Bang. I'm pretty sure that's the first time that album's ever been on the show.
Yeah,
I was trying my best to bring up things that weren't repetitive on the show, so that way we can make it.
Okay. Just before you go any further, if you bring out Ride the Lightning, the show's over. Just,
well,
just leave
I
it
did
on the
have
show.
it ready to go.
We don't want to hear any more shit about Ride the Lightning. We're done.
I think we got time for a couple more records. I think we got time for a couple more records here.
Yeah, I know. I've been blathering on a lot.
Please make the next one right.
So, a couple things for fun, right? Nick, since we were just talking about this movie and album the other day, I had to bring this up.
Yes.
20th anniversary pressing, bigger, longer, and uncut. Right? I mean,
which pressing do you have?
This is I believe, if I remember correctly.
I need.
What was it? Was there one for all of them?
It's Cartman and Kenny and Stan and Kyle.
Yeah, one has Cartman and Kenny, the other has Stan and Kyle.
This one's green and blue. So this one's Kyle, I think.
So it's Kyle.
Wait, green and blue? Maybe. I can't remember.
So earlier when we were discussing getting gifts for our birthdays, my birthday is November 6th. I will send you my address. I need that pressing. I have the other one. I have Kitty and Cartman. That's
Oh, okay.
awesome that you have that pressing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I know it's not. I know it's definitely not Cartman. So this one has. Yeah. This is Stan and Kyle.
Nice.
Yeah, Stan and Kyle. That's what it
I'm
is.
jealous.
I forgot.
That's
You just
awesome.
open it up and it's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, that's awesome. I love that we have the same album. I mean, dude, how can you not? I mean, obviously we were hanging out. Shout out to Cha with Cha last weekend, searching for records up in Baltimore, and we were talking about you just can't not love the soundtrack. I mean, it's especially for the time. There was nothing like it, especially being that outrageous, but also so well written and musical. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And that insulting and infuriating to so many people at the same time. So I had to bring this up because I know, all of us are South Park fans.
Sure.
But I'm stoked that you have the same opposite pressing of this because now our powers are complete. We have all of them.
Combined. Yes.
Exactly. It's like Captain Planet, bro. We're good.
The Violent Femmes cover of I Swear It I Can Change, dude. I fucking love the Violent Femmes version of that song, dude.
Oh
It is
my
so
God.
good, so good.
Yeah, I've been trying to track down because I used to have I don't know if you guys remember the first CD they ever released where it had like a bunch of chef songs and like Suck on My Salty Balls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They've released a few like shaped singles for that. But I guess I'm nothing on vinyl yet. All right, so I'm gonna speed up these couple so I can get these in. It's another soundtrack, but this one's kind of special, right? So this is the third edition. This is Return of the King, Lord of the Rings by Howard Shore, right? These are awesome pressings, all three. I own all three. I was lucky enough to get this one. I think each movie has a slightly different edition size. I think after they released each one, they realized how popular they were and started releasing more. But they basically look like a giant book, leather bound on the side, right? Even kind of fake little pages, for the box set. Each of them come with. I mean, it's going to be hard to obviously show this in the camera, but everything in here is kind of insane because they give you details of like the songwriting, down to like copies of the music, print, all that kind of thing. Each of these came with a different piece of the map. So, not to nerd out, but I'm going to nerd out. So, this is the section of map that comes with Return of the King, right? But for like, if you're a music fan from anything to do with those movies, these are absolutely the best. The reason I wanted to bring this one up, especially though, is because if you could see that on the back, let's see. Oh, sorry, right above my finger, there were 8,000 copies made, and this was the last one made.
That's 8,000.
Yep.
Nice.
8,000. So this is 8,000 out of 8,000. Doesn't have a second number, which I had never gotten a pressing like that before, where it just had one digit, not the other side. So that I thought was really cool. These absolutely sound amazing. They've released some different versions of them since then. But dude, like if you're a fan of those movies, like those are the versions of those records that you want to get. Luckily enough for me, they came out like right after I started collecting, like that late 2017, 18. So I think the Fellowship I had to buy used from somebody, but the other two I was able to get brand new. And now they're worth like a lot of money, which I'd never even suspected happening, but I'm just lucky I have them. They're awesome. I think it's so cool the way they did everything with them. And like, it's like getting a movie that has like 500% bonus features that you were dying to see. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Oh yeah.
All right. So lastly, I guess, let me see what I got here. Oh yeah. Got a couple. So I had a feeling that nobody's really brought up Accept yet, and I'm hoping I'm right.
I don't think so.
You are correct.
This was another one of that vintage vinyl purchase. So this was one of the first records, one of 4 that I got from my very, very, very first purchase buying records in 2017. So this is an OG pressing, still has a little sticker that they would leave on it to let you know, don't crease that shit, or else you're going to pay for it. But this album is absolutely awesome. I got into this this band particularly from Dimmu Borgir, oddly enough, who would do a cover of Metal Heart. And then I went to the band, found the band, but I was super stoked to find this. I mean, just an original OG cover. The stupid thing that I will admit on camera right now, though, is after I bought it and put it in the car, I did not know what I was doing. So that little corner crimp happened within about 20 minutes of owning it. But other than that, I just love this album. Super underappreciated band. For those that are local in Maryland, they'll be playing M3, which will be awesome because M3's lineup is usually pretty stacked, but this year's awesome. But yeah, super awesome band. I love their mixture of kind of just that laid back 80s rock sound, and then out of nowhere, they can get pretty damn heavy. But just an awesome German metal band. You know what I mean? The quality of this is really good. I've never heard any other pressing on vinyl, so I don't really have anything to compare it to. But I was just really lucky. So every time I see it, it reminds me of that first time going to check out records. Just awesome print, awesome record. Great thing to have. If you ever like that band, you should definitely get a copy of that album.
Fuck yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, sir.
I was just clowning our friend Flo the other day because she had an Accept bootleg shirt on for Balls to the Wall in the music video. But
I mean, if you're wearing that dude thigh on your shirt, that's kind of a little stretch. You know what I mean? Like, I love that album, but you can't really rock like straight inner man thigh.
No, it's him riding the wrecking ball. It's just like the worst.
Okay. Well, that's kind of cool.
But I laughed so hard. I was like, "Whoa, what's up with his shirt?" And she got all embarrassed.
I mean, it's funny. Yeah.
Well, hell yeah, man. That was awesome. You have a lot.
Dude, this was fun, Chris. This was fucking great.
Appreciate it, guys. I'm glad I finally got to do this with you guys. I know I probably I was nervous as shit because I was just like, I just want to make sure I'm doing something that'll help them out too, and like showing some stuff that's cool, not sounding like a jackass. So I'm just happy to help you guys out, man. Be a part of it, shoot the shit, talk some shop. You know what I mean? It's I'm very appreciative to be thought of being asked. So thank you guys a ton.
Dude, I was nervous because I mean, like, whenever I had approached you about being on the show, I still had a gallbladder.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, like, dude, either way, I mean, I just it's nice to be asked. You know what I mean? To do this sort of thing, I appreciate it.
Absolutely, this was fun.
Oh yeah, man.
Hell yeah, man.
And we say this all the time, but we will definitely have you back on for a second part because
for sure. We have a lot Nanta did say she will think about doing a couple show if you ever wanted to do that.
Yeah, if she wants to come on with you, that'll be great. I know she's
yeah,
incredible.
Yeah. I'll keep poking her about it. See if she'll want to get down to it.
Yeah, the last time I came over there and you took me up to see her collection, I saw a piece of hers and I was like, man, like that. And I thought about it when I brought it to your attention. I was like, we got to have her on the show too. She's got a pretty sick collection.
Yeah, dude. I mean, she keeps most of her stuff stored at her dad's just because we don't have a ton of space and she doesn't usually like to invest in vinyl shelves as much, but. Yeah, she would. I'm sure she would like. She's just shy, but I'm sure she would get over it pretty quickly because just I mean, I don't think Jeff you've met her yet, but it's not like she doesn't know who you are. You know what I mean?
No, it's a fun time. Just show her this episode when it airs, and I'm sure she'll enjoy it.
Exactly. It's just chill, man.
If nothing else, tell her that I can do like the witness protection thing. Make her voice sound like this, like put a black bar over her eyes or something, and I won't do it. We'll put her on the internet anyway, but it'll be fun,
Right, exactly, man.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to be on our show. Thank you once again to everybody for checking us out this week, and we will see you all next week.
Oh yeah, guys.
See you guys.